Well, first of all, to say that my my transition from just being a mere landscape architect to being a really enthusiast for sustainable drainage is all to do with my interest, a long-term interest really, on wildlife. And as a landscape architect, I tried to increase the value of the sites that I work with. And I had done a lot of work with amphibian conservation as well. So I think I was casting around to find a really good way that I could integrate biodiversity and placemaking into my landscapes. And in 1996, a friend of mine who was doing reed bed design said, well, you might find this interesting, and packed me off unceremoniously up to Coventry, where there was an introduction. It was called Nature's Way. And it was large. It was the Environment Agency, but also what became SEPA, the Scottish Environment Protection Agency. And they were doing some work up in Scotland at a place called Dunfermline, Dunfermline East Expansion Area, the DEX project. Yeah. And they brought some Americans over to explain this new way of managing rainfall. And of course, I was the only landscape architect in the room. It was full of grey suits and shiny grey suits at that. And as we went through...
I can't see you in a suit, Bob.
Pardon?
I can't see you in a suit. I don't think you're a suit.
No, well, I haven't got one, so you won't. So I saw all these fabulous images from the States of basins and wetlands and ponds and what we now know are called swales, and the enthusiasm of, and to be fair, there were two engineers who were explaining this, and their enthusiasm about saying, and it wasn't all about flooding either. It was all about improving water quality, and their enthusiasm for this. And then I looked at what they were doing, and I said, well, this is landscape. I mean, this is using the landscape to manage rainwater. And one of the things that they said was, we are mimicking nature. And that rang some bells for me. Yeah. And I said, well, look, if you're mimicking nature and you're using the landscape to manage rainfall, this is landscape design, you know. But of course, the way we look at rainfall in Britain, and the way that we put it in pipes and we put it in boxes and all the rest of it, had become an engineering discipline. And I suppose somebody who was less bloody minded than me would have said, oh, well, that's an engineer's job, but I didn't. I said, this is my job. And I must find an engineer who can add up, because I'm not very good with that. I've only got 10 fingers, you know. And I was very fortunate in being able to find a couple of sympathetic engineers. And I've been lucky in this right the way through, that for some reason, you know, it's like-minded people meet like-minded people, don't they, to some extent. Yeah. And so I've met like-minded engineers, and I've met many who are not, but they help me with the numbers. And partly the numbers are what's the rainfall information that we have, because we base all of these designs on historical records, really. Yeah. But you have to understand some magic to be able to get the numbers to use out of the other end, and I don't have that magic. That is, I can't operate some of these programs that would tell me what volumes I have to use and what flow rates I have to use. So once I had that basic information, I was away. You know, it's a bit like it unlocked it for me to do this. But very quickly I realized that many of the things which I had learnt from these guys from the States were not being implemented in Britain, even on the SUDS schemes that were, and it wasn't called SUDS, it was called stormwater management or whatever it was. And it was quite clear that the objective, the thing that made the engineer do it was flooding, controlling volume. Yeah. The thing that made me do it was mimicking nature. You know, and there was this dichotomy, and I very quickly found that my designs were completely different to the engineers' designs. And because of my interest, you know, in a sense, the idea of getting this water, managing it, cleaning it. The end product was lovely, lovely landscape.
Yeah,
And so that was that's what got my belly fired, So to cut a long story short, I was doing some work with motorway service areas at the time, not doing straight landscape. And the Oxford one, the guy from the operator said, "Bob, would you come and give us a price for doing the landscape?" And he was saying, "Oh, it's a real problem. This we may have to put in a sewer for 2 miles, stormwater sewer, because there's nowhere to drain this to." And I had noticed that there was this ditch. It was on clay, so there's got to be surface water somewhere. Yeah. So I noticed this ditch, and I said, "Well, you should be able to do this here." And he fortunately had seen something similar in France, and he said, "Well, look, could you do it for the same money? Could you design it for the same money? But we would save for this long tube to the River Tame." And I said yes, which was, I think, I had both fingers crossed behind my back when I said this. And the Environment Agency then were very supportive. They got the basic numbers for me. I remember it now. 19.1 litres per second was the outfall rate, and they told me what the storage volumes were. Off I went, And I was very, very fortunate. And I have to say, I blagged quite a lot of it through. And I'm not saying it was perfect, and there were a number of issues which I won't go into. But at the end of the day, it was basically water kept at the surface, water travelling through either swales or simple short pipe connectors into basins, wetlands, long swales, and then out at 19.1 litres per second. Unfortunately, clearly I was in the right place at the right time, because nobody else was doing it. And so I got a lot of publicity for this, and I got the next one, which was Hopwood Park Motorway Service Area up on M42. I've always been a bit of a showman, so I did a lot of presentations and song and dance routines, really.
Well, I've sat for a couple of them, and I testament to your showman skills. It's very good.
But it's enthusiasm. I couldn't do it without the enthusiasm for the subject. And what we found was, of course, that by doing exactly what the guidance said, in a way, this business of cleaning the water as soon as possible and reducing the flow rate, it gives you tremendous opportunities to create both wetland habitat and temporary wetland habitat. So whether it's a wetland, whether it's a pond, whether it's a grass space which occasionally floods with water, and of course the continuity with SUDS, you're taking water from one place to another, which means that you can build continuity into your design. So if you're a newt, you can get from A to B on the surface in these wetland channels or whatever it might be, or in these long grass areas. And suddenly, you realize that if you see SUDS in that way, it becomes this tremendous biodiversity opportunity.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's where we might go next.
We certainly will. So I'm